There are people who walk into a room and become the room. And then there is the other kind, the one standing near the wall, saying almost nothing, who somehow already understands everyone in that room better than they understand themselves. If you have ever been that second person, keep watching. Only 1 to 2 out of every 100 people are built this way. Not louder, not more confident, just built differently, wired to notice what everyone else walks straight past, to feel what everyone else is trying to hide, and to carry all of that quietly without ever fully explaining it to anyone. And if that already feels a little too familiar, stay with me because it gets far more specific from here. This is not about being special for the sake of it. It is about finally putting language to a pattern that has been quietly running your entire life, usually without your permission and often without your understanding. Today, we're breaking down 7 signs of what many psychologists consider the rarest personality architecture in the world. Not to put you in a box, but to finally give language to something you have probably felt your entire life and never had the right words for. That quiet sense of being slightly out of sync with everyone around you, in a way you couldn't quite explain, in a way that made you wonder more than once if something was wrong with you. It's not. It's just rare. And rare things are almost always misunderstood before they are ever appreciated. This personality type runs on 2 dominant mental functions. The first is introverted intuition, a kind of internal radar that constantly scans for patterns, meanings, and future outcomes, often before there is any visible evidence they are coming. It works quietly in the background, connecting dots most people don't even realize are there, until suddenly a full picture appears in your mind, almost fully formed. The second is extraverted feeling, an outward-facing sensitivity that picks up on the emotional temperature of every room you walk into, almost like an antenna you were never given the option to switch off. Carl Jung first mapped these functions back in 1921, describing the mind not as one fixed trait, but as a set of competing internal functions that battle for dominance, depending on the person. Decades later, the Myers-Briggs framework built on his ideas and organized personality into 16 types. This one sits at the rarest end of that spectrum. It's worth pausing here to be honest with you. MBTI is not treated as hard science by most academic researchers. It does not have strong predictive validity, and real personality tends to exist on a spectrum, not in 16 clean boxes you either fit into or don't. So think of everything in this video less like a diagnosis and more like a mirror. A way to notice your own patterns, not a label to hide behind or wear as an identity. There's also a third piece worth knowing. Under real stress, this type tends to lean on its weakest, least developed function, extroverted thinking, which is often why, when pushed too far, this normally warm, intuitive mind can suddenly turn cold, blunt, or unusually critical, almost like a completely different person showed up for a while. With that said, let's get into the 7 signs. Sign 1. You see the ending before anyone else sees the beginning. While other people are still getting excited about how a conversation, a relationship, or a new plan is starting, part of you has already quietly walked through how it's going to end. Sometimes in vivid detail, sometimes just as a vague, uneasy feeling you can't fully explain, even to yourself. This is not pessimism, and it's not you trying to ruin the moment for anyone. It's pattern recognition running constantly in the background, whether you invite it to or not. You notice the small inconsistency in someone's story that nobody else catches. You feel the shift in a friendship 2 months before it actually falls apart, long before either person says something about it out loud. You sense when a new job sounds perfect on paper, but something underneath it quietly doesn't add up. And when you try to explain what you're sensing, people often brush it off as overthinking, or tell you that you're reading into things right up until the moment it turns out you were right all along. By then, you've usually learned to just keep it to yourself, because being right rarely feels as good as being believed would have. Sign 2. Small talk feels like suffocation. Weather, traffic, weekend plans. For most people, this is just social lubricant, an easy, low-stakes way to fill space until something real comes along. For you, it can feel like holding your breath underwater, quietly counting the seconds until you can come up for air. Research into the Big Five model personality model shows that people high in openness to experience, deep curiosity, and the genuine love of complexity and ideas often feel real discomfort with surface level conversation, almost like their mind is straining against something too shallow to hold its weight. It's not that you dislike people. It's that you're quietly starving for something real, and small talk feels like being handed a menu instead of an actual meal. You'd rather sit in comfortable silence with someone than talk for an hour about nothing. And when a conversation finally goes somewhere honest about fear or meaning or what someone actually believes deep down, something in you visibly relaxes, like you've finally been let into the room you were trying to reach the entire time. Sign 3. You absorb other people's emotions like a sponge. You walk into a room, and before a single word is spoken, you already know something is off. Someone is stressed. Someone is hiding sadness behind a joke that lands just a little too hard. Someone is putting on a brave face purely for everyone else's sake, and you're the only one who notices the cracks underneath it. And somehow that emotion becomes yours too. It settles into your chest and stays there for the rest of the day, even though it was never technically your problem to carry in the first place. This is extroverted feeling running at full volume, a constant, almost involuntary tuning in to the emotional state of everyone around you, whether you're at a family dinner, in a work meeting, or just standing quietly in a checkout line. It can make you an incredible source of comfort for other people, the one friends call at 1 in the morning, the one who somehow always knows exactly what to say when nothing else seems to help. But it can also leave you utterly drained by the end of most days, carrying emotional weight that was never yours to begin with, and rarely knowing how or when you're allowed to put it down. Over time, a lot of people with this wiring learn to build small, quiet rituals just to reset. A walk alone, an hour with no phone, a closed door. Not because they're antisocial, but because absorbing this much, this constantly, simply requires somewhere to put it all down. Sign 4. You live an entire second life inside your head. On the outside, you might look calm, quiet, maybe even a little distant, like you're only half paying attention to what's happening around you. On the inside, there's a whole world running at full speed. Replayed conversations you're still mentally finishing hours later. Imagine futures you're testing out before they've had the chance to happen. Ideas you're building brick by brick that nobody else has seen yet, or maybe ever. This rich inner world is often the real home base, the place you actually live most fully, The outer world, meetings, errands, small talk, and hallways, is just where you occasionally visit. And sometimes, in the middle of a perfectly normal day, you catch yourself quietly wishing you could just go back inside. Sign 5. You crave meaning the way other people crave comfort. A job that pays well but feels completely empty can feel almost physically unbearable to you, even when you cannot fully explain why to the people who think you should just be grateful. A relationship that is pleasant but shallow can leave you feeling more alone than actual solitude ever does, because at least solitude does not pretend to be something it is not. Viktor Frankl, the psychiatrist who survived the Holocaust and later wrote about what he called the will to meaning, argued that the deepest human drive is not pleasure or power, it is purpose, a reason worth getting up for. For this personality type, that drive is not just a nice philosophical idea to nod along to in a book club. It is closer to a survival need. Without some thread of meaning running through your days, something in you genuinely starts to wilt. You might still function, still show up, still smile in photos when someone asks you to, but there is a flatness underneath that you can feel even when nobody else seems to notice it at all. Sign 6. You see through people's masks, sometimes before they even know they are wearing one. The forced smile that doesn't quite reach the eyes, the joke that's really covering something painful underneath it, the confident tone hiding real doubt just beneath the surface, no matter how well it is rehearsed. You catch these things automatically, without even trying. It's simply how your mind has always worked for as long as you can remember. It's a strange kind of gift because it means you rarely get fooled by surface presentation. You tend to know who someone really is long before they ever tell you themselves. But it's also isolating because most people are not ready to be truly seen. And when you see them anyway, without ever saying a single word about it out loud, it can quietly make them uncomfortable or make them keep you at arm's length without ever fully understanding why they are doing it. It's a strange trade off to live with. You rarely get surprised by people, but you also rarely get to enjoy the simple comfort of taking someone completely at face value, the way it seems like everyone else so easily does. Sign 7. The quiet lifelong ache of being unseen. This might be the most painful sign of all. You spend so much of your energy understanding everyone else, their moods, their motives, their unspoken needs, the things they can never quite say out loud, that very few people ever turn that same depth of attention back toward you. You can be surrounded by people who genuinely care about you. At a birthday dinner, a family gathering, a group chat full of inside jokes, laughing along with everyone else in the room, and still feel like nobody there has ever really met the version of you that lives quietly inside your own head. It's not that people don't love you, it's that being fully understood at the depth you naturally operate on is rare. Because minds like yours are rare, and most people were simply never taught to look that closely at anyone, including themselves. So if you recognize yourself in even a few of these signs, here's the honest gut check, because this matters more than most personality content out there is willing to admit. Don't just adopt this label because it feels flattering or because it makes you feel special in a moment when you needed to feel like more than just another person in the crowd. Sit with whether these patterns actually describe how your mind consistently works under stress, in real relationships, over years, not just on your best, most self aware day. That's the real difference between genuine self understanding and simply collecting a nice sounding identity to wear for a while and then quietly set down when it stops fitting. But if this really is you, if you felt too deep for the room, too aware for the conversation, and too rare for most people to fully understand, even the ones who love you most, then here's the reframe worth holding on to for the long run. The same wiring that makes you exhausted after a party is the exact wiring that lets you notice what everyone else in that party completely missed. The same depth that makes small talk unbearable is exactly what makes your real conversations unforgettable to the handful of people lucky enough to have them with you. Being rare was never really the burden. Being rare and unseen, that was the burden. And now, at least, you have language for it, which means you can finally stop over explaining yourself to people who were never going to understand and start quietly looking for the few who actually will. You don't need everyone to get it, you just need the handful of people who do. And once you find them, you'll understand why this rarity was always meant to be a gift, not something to apologize for. If this described you, let me know which sign hit hardest in the comments. I read every single one. And if you want more videos exploring the psychology of rare and misunderstood minds, subscribe because there's a lot more of this coming.